Alright guys, it's Jack and welcome back to the Drunken Barbell podcast. As some of you guys know, I have been a little, not lazy, I wouldn't say lazy at all. I've just had some areas that I've needed to be focusing on more. Went on holiday for some personal, just relaxation basically. I've got a big end of year coming up and I was like, fuck, I want to get in like a week's holiday before the end of the year. And I haven't had a holiday in like 2 years, so I went down to Tasmania. It's like Tasmania is it's so much like England, and it was so much fun. But I won't bore you with all the details. But I'm back now, and I'm going to be making a couple of small changes to the Drunken Barbell podcast. The biggest one, I'm going to aim to keep the episodes now roughly 15 to 20 minutes. Just give short, sharp, impactful information and content that you can apply directly to your training, right? And I don't feel like it needs to be taken an hour. It's also the case of my days are just absolutely manic at the moment, so I'm going to keep this to a fortnight. But as always, I want to set the start. When you do hear the podcast, please share it on your social medias and tell your friends, tell them to listen to it. Again, you guys like 3x my weekly views, so you're very, very helpful. But yeah, so always, and subscribe to my YouTube channel as well, because I'm going to be putting a video on my YouTube channel. We'll be doing that every fortnight as well. But what I'm going to talk about today is what I like to call the domino effect in coaching, right? And I suppose I've always tried to do this, and I've always done this as a coach. As lifters, we're always trying to do this as well, but we can often, it's like you don't know what you don't know. And normally this is a subconscious effort that only, and I hope after you listening to this podcast, you will be able to make it a conscious effort and really start to think more about what I call, again, the domino effect. And that's one event initiates a succession of similar events, right? And what this means for you as a lifter is that this one big domino will make you stronger. By knocking over this one big domino and then creating a series of events, of successful events, you will become stronger, you will be able to lift more. Now the domino effect that's applicable to this here is targeting an area of weakness that changes the way that you move. Right, and the best way for you guys to understand this is think about your squat, bench, and deadlift, right? And how you move inside of your squat, bench, and deadlift. As powerlifters, we're always trying to become stronger. We always want to lift more, get a bigger total on the platform, hit new personal bests. And what often restricts our ability to hit one rep max is when we're lifting, 105, 110% of our one rep max, hitting new personal bests. Is I find it's more so that people break down technically and they miss lifts from a technique standpoint rather than just a strength standpoint. And that could be anything from the weight got into their head and it has a ripple effect into how well they breathe and brace, get their back tight, just compose themselves and do exactly what they need to do, either over or under the barbell. So if you think about your squat, bench, and deadlift and how the domino effect can apply to you, think of your one rep max, right? And whereabouts can you see that breakdown coming from? And again, let's just think of the squat. If we think about the principles of squat, bench, deadlift, the squatting itself, you've got, your upper back tightness, you're bracing or generating power from the legs and hips, right? So think about one of those areas. You can think about arching your lower back, being rolled forward in the squat, or just simply as you drive up, your knees fucking touch, right? So that they're the most common ones in terms of breakdown that we'll see in the squat during a one rep max. And why did you miss that lift? And I guarantee you more often than not, it'll be from a technical standpoint. Then, off the back of that, I want you to think about your technical max breakdown. And this is something that I've learned from a friend of mine and a mentor, Thomas Lilly. You've got your absolute max, so your one rep max, and your technical max. Now, once you've located, the best way to look at this is once you've located what area broke down during your maximal lifting, go back or get under the barbell and start to work up to a weight where you start to, or that weakness starts to become apparent. That's what I like to call a technical max. And this is really, really helpful for as a coach, but also as a lifter, because you can then get an understanding of just how kind of weak you are in that area. We don't want to be weak, we want to be strong. But putting it into a bit more of a practical sense for you, let's say you squat 200 kilos, right, for quick maths. Your 1 rep max is 200 kilos and you see that you lose your brace, right? So then you go, okay, cool, like that's what's stopping me from becoming stronger. That is what, you know, I believe caused me to miss that lift or miss going heavier. All right, cool. We jump back under the barbell, we start working up in weight. We start to, this weakness or lack of bracing or ability to hold that rigidity and that compression in the brace becomes apparent around 150 kilos. And you're like, right, okay, so at this weight, this is where that I start to break down. So the big domino effect in this sense is going, okay, so if I work on my breathing and bracing and I strengthen this position and it has to begin around 150 kilos, that there is only going to help me get to 160 kilos with correct bracing, compression, etc. 170, 180, 190, 200, and then 210, 220 and beyond, right? And that's what I mean by the big domino effect. And I'm going to use a real life example with, I've got fucking heaps of lifters that I've been doing this with recently. And it's come off the back of a couple of my states group. We're leading internationals and there's not a lot of turnaround, right? From states leading internationals, what do? They compete in April. You got May, June, and July. Right, so let's say you got roughly about 12 weeks. That's not a huge turnaround, but this is the power of locating that one big domino and then finding out where it broke down maximally, where it breaks down technically, and then working in between those ranges, right? Because again, I'm going to steal something from, or a quote from Thomas Lilly, and it's the only way to improve a squat is with a squat. Right? So when you look at your squat, you have to squat more to improve that position. You can't just think, okay, my brace is weak, so I'm going to go train abs. I'm going to go do more ab wheel rollouts, etc. Yes, they apply, but way later down the track inside of your training program. We'll talk about that in a second. So one of my lifters, she misses a lift right before she hits in the hole. And what I mean by that is her technique breaks down and she loses her brace right before she hits the depth inside of the squat. So then as she pushes up, where you will think that she's missed the lift is about halfway up and you're just thinking, oh, she just doesn't have any more strength in it. But if you look at from like a side on, or when we've assessed her training afterwards or assessed her lifts, we can see just before the hole, or just before, as she's squatting down into the hole, she doesn't maintain that rigidity and compression around her bracing, as well as slightly in her upper back. And then she then relaxes inside of the hole. As she pushes out, she then has to go into extension through her lower back, almost up, and then like gravitating up into her thoracic. And then from there, it looks like she just doesn't have any strength coming out of the hole or about halfway up. But in reality, the power that's trying to be, like, she's pushing as hard as she can with the legs, but the direction of force is just not going directly into the barbell. Right, there's all this leaks in energy coming from her brace. So we have to, as soon as I locate it out, I say, okay, cool, bracing here is the big domino. We don't need to necessarily get you any stronger, right? We just need to work on this technical issue inside of your lifting, and that there is how you're going to become stronger and lift a bigger 1 rep max. When you look at the principles of squat, benching, and deadlifting, and when you look at break each of those down, look at squatting itself, the power is generated from the legs and the hips, so the muscles surrounding those. You then have your ability to breathe and brace, hold rigidity in that area, compression, and then you've got upper back rigidity, right? So you just have to then look inside of those principles and go, okay, it makes it very, very simple for you and go, okay, this one here is where we see the largest breakdown in form. We know it happens at 150 kilos, and that's your 1 rep max, but we can start to notice it around 100 kilos. So we need to start working in and around that. Because if the big thing that I want you to take away from that is if you have an inability to hold a position, then you are going to like essentially lose or break those principles, and you're going to miss lifts. So when I was having a look at one of my, like I said, one of my lifters, we found that it was around 100 kilos that she started to break down technically, and it was affecting her 1 rep max. She was strong enough to maybe put another 10 kilos on her squat, but again, that's all well and good until you do it. Now, how you can apply this to your training, or how I've directly applied this to her training, is we've stuck to the same 1 rep max. We know we're going to be going a little bit above that coming into nationals, but and off the back of that as well, actually, you can only fix a squat with a squat, right? So as a powerlifter going into your next competition, majority or the bulk of your training program, which we're going to talk about now, the bulk of your training program wants to be squatting, right? It just makes total sense. You go, okay, cool. So it's not a case of working more on exercises outside of the squat. They do help, but the bulk of your training now wants to be inside of squatting itself. So we would be doing, 4 to 5 sets of main squats, depending on the rep range and percentage, etc. And then once you've completed that, you've put in the skill work, executing every single rep the best that you can, teaching her every time and every single rep before she performs the squat to create a brace, create the action of bracing, and just before the hold to make sure that she holds that position and not lose it at any point, right? And she's done a really good job at it. Then as her secondary exercise, again, you can only prove a squat with a squat. This is where we really hone in on this weakness. We find at what point in the squat are they weakest at, and we target it. So in this case, it was a pause squat, because it was just before the hole and inside of the hole that she had the inability to hold position. So we would then do 4 or 5 sets of squats. Then in our back off sets of pause squatting, or tempo squatting is another great way of using this as well. We're then performing pause squats for only like reps of like 3 to 4, because it's very, very challenging and it's a fucking hard exercise to be able to do and hold that position. We're talking like a hold of like 1 to 2 seconds. The timing isn't super important, right? People get real hung up on like focusing on counting in their head, 1, 2, go. The timing isn't as important as the execution of like said principle or said action, in this case bracing. So it's all about when you're sitting in the hole, you might even stay in there for 3 seconds, because you need that time, that muscle awareness, that coordination, that proprioception to go, okay, I'm holding my brace as tightly as I can. This is how it should feel inside of the squat, and then I'm gonna push up and out of it. And that is how we've been applying it into her training. And already, I'm hearing things. We're still 5 weeks out, so we still got heaps of time. I'm hearing things of, that feels great, I feel so much stronger. Even things like, can I go up in weight now? Can I put my 1 rep max up? Okay, I think this is what I'm now gonna go for my 1 rep max. And nothing else has changed inside of the squat apart from going, okay, this is your one big domino, or big weakness. If we flick this over and we absolutely nail this position, and when we turn this into a strength, it is gonna have, it initiates a succession of similar events down the chain. So the better you become breathing and bracing, the better you can hold your upper back tightness. You then can express the strength that you do have from your legs equals a new 1 rep max. Now, inside of your training program still, because I'd like to go a little bit more in depth into that, because I don't want you to just do like squat, and then be like, fuck, what do I do now? Again, I always want you to advise you, and this is what I do, and I go back into the principles. All right, cool. So this big weakness is still the bracing, but we can't, you're gonna be pretty gassed after doing, let's say like 7 to 8 sets of squats. So you need to kind of pull back from those large big compound lifts, but still something that is as close to that lift as possible, right? So you're taking away from the, how difficult it is, but you're still keeping within the principles, or trying to pick an exercise that is very, very similar. So by now you might have thought, okay, cool, still need to be able to squat. A goblet squat is a really good idea here. It also puts the weight anteriorly, because the person has to hold it. So again, they're targeting heavily on their bracing still. And then you can start to look at exercises like the ab wheel rollouts, what's the other ones, like body saws, exercises that force the individual to avoid flexion or extension of the spine and maintain that rigid, compressed position. And that's basically what we've done inside of her program, as well as adding exercises like just general exercises like Bulgarian split squats. I'm a big fan of putting someone on unilateral exercises as well. But I'm pretty sure her squat day goes main squats, pause or tempo squats, goblet squatting, and we're doing the goblet squatting fairly heavy, this close to comp as well. We're doing like 6 to 8 reps, Bulgarian split squats, and then ab wheel rollout. So you can see along all of these exercises, she is having to breathe and brace, hold that position. And the better that she's becoming at it and the more that she's focusing on it and is aware of how it should feel, the stronger she's becoming without really the need of essentially like just targeting like what most people think of, 85% of my 1 rep max is strength training. No, we're looking at this one big domino, this weakness, and we're targeting it so that we can become stronger in this position, which is gonna make our overall squat stronger. And that's all I wanted to bring across for you guys today. I really wanted to just give you short, sharp, sweet, impactful information and how you can apply this to your training program. So what I think you guys should go away and do now is, like I say, find a video of your 1 rep max, right? Find out why you broke down in that lift, what area of that lift you broke down in. Then go back and maybe get onto the barbell and start to record some videos, side on, front on, and then having a look and go, okay, cool, I saw my knees touch together during the squat, or I got folded during the squat, or I arched my back too much during the squat, I can't hold my brace. And then you start to, you find out where that weakness becomes apparent, and then you start to build your program and build your awareness and your skill around lifting inside of that weakness. And I guarantee you, once you apply this domino effect inside of your like training, or if you're a coach and you're applying this to one of your lifters, you will benefit from much faster or fast track people's results, really with minimal effort from your point, because you just need to keep honing in on this one big area. And as a lifter, it doesn't become boring because you have complete focus inside of this one area. Once you feel how weak you are in the position, if you want to become better at it, like you're completely obsessed with increasing this into a strength. And like I said, I've applied this with a whole heap of my lifters leading into nationals. This isn't the only success that I've had with it. And what is also great with this is teaching newbies, right? We've just had like 5 or 6 new women coming into the gym, and we literally used this same assessment tool, going, okay, where do they break down? Right, their program then needs to apply into this part of their weakness across all areas. And what you'll often find is if they break down, if they lose their brace and say their squat, you'll find it the same thing in their deadlift, right? So I'm gonna leave you with that because we're coming up to about 20 minutes. As always, guys, subscribe to the YouTube page, subscribe to this page. Please share, again, you guys 3x my awareness and growth of this, and I will be speaking to you again in a fortnight. If you have any questions or a topic that you would like to talk to me about on, just message me. I'm more than happy to do that, because again, it's about me delivering information that's going to be impactful for you guys, and things that you can take away to become bigger, stronger powerlifters. I'll speak to you soon.